what is family constellation, and what does it do, and why do I need to come? What do I get from it? Family system constellation. If I may say, in the words of one of the teachers, Bertold Ulsamer, he says that it is a way of discovering underlying family bonds and forces and energies that have been carried unconsciously over generations, several generations. So, family constellation is really this modality, which helps us look at all that is sitting in us in this moment, that has been passed down or that has come across generations, and it limits us from truly living our life, truly living our purpose in this body and moving forward into and with the flow of our own life. In a nutshell, what family constellation is the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Anything that we look at in our life, like me sitting here, I'm made of my eyes, I can hear, my mouth, my hands, my arms, my legs, the organs inside of me. I mean, I'm made up of so many different parts. When they all come together and they become me with my soul, my spirit, all of that. It is way bigger than these parts individually. Take anything like that. So the whole is always way bigger than. So I'm sitting here, I'm not this individual. Everything that has come to me, through me, as me, across generations, as part of my origin family system, my own life and my happiness, happenings in my life, how I've shown up in my life, all of that is with me in everything that I do or not able to do. So there is so much more when we see an individual, a situation, a circumstance. What we see is way more than all these different parts that are put together. And that is kind of the foundation of the systemic theory, to be able to recognize this interconnectedness. So as a family constellation facilitator, we work in the field, the morphogenetic field. So what is the morphogenetic field? It's like, have you ever had this experience in your life when you call a friend and they say, my God, I was just thinking about you. And maybe you're calling them after a year or months. Or you're thinking about your mom, you're thinking about your children, or someone really close to you, and the phone rings and you pick up and it's them, and you're like, whoa, I was just thinking about you. How did this happen? Like these, how does this happen? How did that person know to connect with you in that moment? So this is just a simple example I'm giving. So there is a field which extends, which is encompassing of all of life, and it's had a deep intelligence in it. My teacher, Annie Karyappa, she always gives the example of the wolf pack. In a wolf pack, when they move in this energetic field. So even if one wolf from the pack strays away or moves away for some reason, the field is extended to as far as the wolf goes, that single wolf or the lone wolf, to include it. So everyone knows what's happening. So if that wolf is in danger, if it's sick, the field knows, they know, and they can do what is necessary. And all of nature actually is moving in this field. Like when you see a whole herd of birds, that's move in thousands of birds making these formations in the sky, these fast movements, how are they doing it? How is it they don't bump into each other and destroy the formation or collapse, or if somebody falls down? What is that field that carries them? So we are also in this field. The only thing is that we are consciously not aware of it, but we are. It is very much present. And that's why there are certain moments, these gateways happen and we experience this. Yeah. So that is the energy field within which we work in constellation. as a facilitator, we work with three things. One is the field or the energy, and the second is facts, facts about our life, uh, that has happened, and events and people and relationships and facts. And the third is order. And order is the wisdom, or the foundational wisdom of family constellation, that which is based on, it is orders of love, principles of relationships. What is the structure of a family constellation? So when you hear about, oh, there's a family constellation workshop happening, when you go, what happens? Yeah. So when you go to a family constellation workshop, usually in a family constellation workshop, there is a facilitator, and then there are those who are attending the family constellation. So usually we sit in a classical, the way I have learned it, we sit in a circle. This facilitator sits in the front, and there is a chair to the left side of the facilitator, which is usually empty, which is where anyone who wishes to open their constellation, that's how we say it. So usually what happens is the client who comes, and they could come to work on anything. It could be relationships, your own family, entanglement, stuckness in your family, any issues that you're dealing with, disease, it could be disease, it could be stuckness, depression, anxiety, and even inability to move forward in life, inability to embrace success, be successful, so many different things, like chronic things which continuously keep happening, being stuck in a cyclic. So any of these things, that do not allow us to flow, you can bring that into a family constellation, and you can see in the field as to where is the stuckness, where is the energy not able to flow. So there is a client who has come with something that they would like to open and find a healing, or something that they want to see. The energy, or it's see in the field. So there's the client, and then there are we call the holding circle, all those who sitting. So usually the client would share a situation or something that they are really longing for in their life. There's a deep desire, deep wish for that they want, and the facilitator or the family constellation helper. So Bert uses this word helper because he calls us the art of helping. So the helper so the family constellation works in our origin family or in our present family. So what is the origin family? The origin family is the family that we are born into. Our biological family consisting of our parents, our siblings, our grandparents, and many. So I'll talk about that when I talk about orders of love. And our present family is if you are married, and you have your partner, you have your children, maybe your grandchildren. So you have your own present family. So these are the two aspects too. So depending upon where the issue is, or what the facilitator feels in his or her own phenomenology, and knowing, based on that, the constellation is open. So say usually many of our movements have a lot to do with the origin family. So if you have never opened an origin family in a constellation, that is where it is always best to begin. Yeah. And so say the facilitator decides that, okay, we are going to open your constellation based on your origin family. So origin family is the client and the parent, the father and the mother. So I'm just giving an example. And then the facilitator or the helper asks the client to look in the holding circle and find someone that they resonate, in an instinct, in a feeling level from the body. For someone, they pick a representative for their father, they pick a representative for their mother, and they pick a representative for themselves. And then they guide them by the shoulder, and they place them in this field, which is in the center, spatially, in the way they see the internal image of this relationship. Once the client does that, the client comes and sits back with the facilitator in the chair. And then those who have come, those who are in the holding circle, they need not again know anything about family constellation. So this is where, and then in the field, the representatives are invited to become the representative by start just tuning into their own body and saying what they feel, what they're sensing, what's happening. And it's very interesting that the morphogenetic field suddenly is very alive. And suddenly the people who have no connection to the client, who are standing in the field, they suddenly start saying they are encouraged to speak phenomenologically. And what I mean by phenomenologically is in the present moment. What am I feeling? Suddenly they may feel a shooting pain somewhere, or there is a need to sit down, or they cannot look up, or something starts happening in the field in their own body, and they just say it. That's all they have to say. They need not know anything about the client. And based on what is happening there, some entangles are revealed, some. So based on the orders of relationships, or the principles of relationships, orders and love, the facilitator or the helper works in that field for the client to see where the stuckness is, who needs to be remembered or remembered, brought in, connected and separate. So this whole movement happens in the field. So this is how a family constellation workshop happens. So even if you don't get to open your constellation, just as a representative being in the field, there might be such powerful gifts that we receive. Yeah. The philosophy of the family constellation. So Bird talks about the principles of relationships, also called as orders of love. So there are 3 orders of love, which connected to a family system. Yeah, how, and Bird always says this, that all the relationships that we form or enact or move in our life, they are informed by our own original system. Yeah, that's where it begins, our own birth into this body, and how we grew up, and all the movements, the hidden movements, the conscious, unconscious movements. So the first order of love is belonging. Yeah. What does belonging mean? Belonging, who belongs to a family system? Who belongs to your family system? So our parents belong to a family system, our siblings belong to a family system, our parents' siblings belong to a family system, our grandparents belong to a family system. All those who have passed, died, deceased, they also are part of the family system. Children who were aborted, miscarriages, and children who were given away for adoption, or children who are adopted into the family, any deaths, sudden deaths, anyone who was let go, who was forgotten forcefully, something they did or something like that, and everybody in the family said, you're never going to speak about that person again. But then how that stays on. Yeah, so even those who are sent away, those who are, all those belong to the family system. And if our family has done, our ancestry, even in our family, our grandparents, our great grandparents, they did something to another family or another outside somebody. They could have done something great, or they could have done something not so great. Yeah, positive or negative. Yeah, they may have harmed somebody or received innumerous gifts from somebody. That also becomes part of our family system. So the first order of love is that everybody has equal right to belong in the family system. So all these people that I mentioned, yeah, they have equal right. So the one who is accoladed and praised and raised to a pedestal, and the criminal in the family, or the worst, who's always seen as, oh God, the troublemaker, the problem maker, that, and the tributed, the saint, they both have equal right to belong in the family system. So that is the first order of love. Yeah. So that is belonging. Everyone in the family system has equal right to belong. What is the second order of love? The second order of love is balance, the balance of giving and taking. And so our family system is forever striving. The field, there's a family field which encompasses of all these people that I mentioned. Therefore, it is forever trying to find its balance it out. What does that mean? It means if there is someone in our family who was let go, who died suddenly and was not grieved or was not held, or somebody was forcefully severed from the family, or that aunt who married outside the family and she was told to leave and everybody else was told, you never remember her, we never mention her name. And when something like that happens, when someone is severed like that, the balancing act is to remember. And how does that remembering of that one happen? Is someone in the generation, maybe the next generation or the generation after, unconsciously, without even knowing this person, you don't even need to know, you suddenly start behaving like them. You suddenly start feeling this, all this starts opening up for you, and you don't even know what this is. And someone starts embodying that person or that happening or that emotion which was suppressed, and they start enacting it. And the balancing is when that is seen in the constellation, and when we recognize it, and when we acknowledge that person, that event, that happening, that feeling that was suppressed or forbidden or hidden, then there is a remembering that happens. There's something flow. Life is, as it has come, it begins to flow, starts to flow. So that is the balance of giving and taking, remembering parts of our own systems that have been severed or forgotten, forcefully forgotten, trauma that sits in our nervous system. And so that's the balance. So second is balance. So the field is forever trying to balance. And you will understand this more when we look at conscience. Yeah, there are 3 conscience that he speaks about, and we look at that after orders of love. So second is balance, and the third is order. Yeah. So order, what is order? Order means that there is a distinct order in a family system. Those who come later, yeah, or those who have come before us, they stand before us in the order. That means our parents are higher up, or before, it's not higher, it's they are before us in the order. The one who has come last stands last in the order. So the grandchildren, the youngest grandchildren stands last in the order. So the order has is of deep importance. So those who came before us precede us in the order of our family system. And what does it mean? Sometimes in life, based on our own situation, circumstances, a child, for example, you see that, the child feels that, oh my God, my parents are so weak, they cannot handle it. So a child starts becoming bigger than the parent. Or a younger sibling starts becoming older, starts behaving, feeling older than, and this could be circumstances, a very unconscious movement, and as we start becoming bigger, we have caused an imbalance in the order. And again, the field is going to bring us back to our place, our right place in the order, which is neither big nor small. So either you become big or you become small. And either ways, again, there is a mismatch in the order, and that is taken on, felt in the phenomenology, in our inability to flow in life. So when our orders are messed up, when there is imbalance, or when the belonging is severed or affected, we feel it in our body. We feel in it as an inability to move forward. Yeah, and so these are what, and all these movements, they are happening out of deep love. Yeah. And it is that when we feel we have our right place in our family, when everybody in our family also has their right place, we have given them their right place, whether they are good, whether they are bad, whether they have been harmful, whether they, whatever may be their place, whatever their place is. Yeah, when we give them their place, there is a deep agreement, there's a deep alignment that starts happening. And by acknowledging that connection, by giving everybody their place, we are able to separate and own our own flow in our life. Yeah. Otherwise, those, I see it this way. Otherwise, when we have those places in our life which have brought us a lot of trauma, and which we don't want to remember, and we say they don't exist, and we don't want them. We keep looking it outside to fill that place, and that keeps bringing imbalance, that keeps shifting our order, that never really allows us to fully belong. Yeah. So when we fully belong, when we arrive in the natural flow of give and take in our family, and can easily move, holding our own boundaries, and when we can honor the order in our family and come to our right place, there's a deep sense of ease, there's a deep sense of peace, to follow our own purpose. And family constellation allows us to see that, see the entanglement, see the knots, see those places in our lives where energy is stuck, and allowing consciously that movement and finding our own flow in life. Yeah. And it's not one, sometimes it takes many iterations, and it is not something that happens cognitively. It happens in the field. The healing happens in the field. And as I have seen it in my own life, everybody feels it in your field. Yeah. And then Bert also talks about conscience. Yeah. Three levels of conscience, and the consequence of conscience is what we experience. Yeah. So what are three levels of conscience? The first conscience that he talks about is the personal conscience. It's like when you're born into a family, you know, the human life, or any life, yeah, to survive, we survive by belonging. Yeah. So when we are born into a family system, we survive by belonging to our family system. And to belong to the family system, every family, has its own rules. Yeah. The shoulds and the should nots, the do's and the do nots, which have been passed down, which has come down, which is in the family. And as a child, when you're a child, what happens is you need to survive. So you may not feel it is right somewhere, but then you are fed and you are cared for and you're loved only if you belong. And belonging means agreeing to the good, agreeing to the right and the wrong rules of the family system. That's at the very personal conscience. So you can even say that it's a very limited conscience. It's the conscience of a child. It's a conscience of survival, so that I can survive. Yeah. So then you agree to it. And every home, if you see individually, if you see at the individual level, every home, we have our own rules, right? So suddenly you go to somebody else's house and you see, oh, what is no in my home, that's okay in their home. And that shifts us, that makes us who we are, and we adhere. And everything has a conscience like that. Every organization has its own personal conscience, where there are rules. This is the do's you have to. So if you want to belong to that group, you want to belong to that system, you want to belong to that company, you want to belong to that organization, you also need to belong to these rules. So the conscience has this polarities. At the personal conscience, there is polarity: the good conscience, the bad conscience. So when you belong, when you align yourself and you flow for your own survival, then you experience a deeper sense of connection and good conscience. And when you're not able to, something has happened and you cannot align, you experience that separation, that the restlessness, and that this fight, and then that shows up as anger, and that shows up as guilt. So there is this innocence and guilt. So when you're in the good conscience, good personal conscience, you experience innocence. And when you are the bad conscience, you experience guilt. So innocence and guilt is what keeps us moving in the personal conscience. We move out of innocence and guilt. It's always, forever, it's there. So when we enter bad conscience, we feel guilty. So, and then we do something so that we again belong. So this movement happens at the personal conscience. It's a very limited conscience connected to a group, or a system, a family system. And then comes the collective conscience. So this is a very unconscious field, which could be like when we say collective conscience of a family system. So my family system, it consists of all these people, the orders of love we spoke about. And at the collective conscience, there's way more involvement of way more things that I know that I do not know. And collective conscience is always, again, the entire field energy of a family system is forever trying to bring balance. And what does it do to bring balance? At the collective conscience, the individual conscience pays a price for the balance without even knowing about it. So if there is somebody who has been sent away from the family, a child who has been given away, he or she, and has never been remembered, forgotten, then the collective conscience level, there is an imbalance. So at the conscience level, somewhere, someone else in the generation takes that position which is empty, which takes that on, yeah. And in doing so, at their own body, in their own mind, their movement is halted. So personally, they suffer without knowing. But at the collective conscience level, the conscience has remembered, using this person, the one that has been forgotten, the one that has been severed, the one that has been sent away. It could be an event, it could be a person. Yeah. So, and that way, the collective conscience constantly strives for balance. So when this person who is now feeling this without knowing anything about this other person, and they start doing this work. So if I look at my own life, I didn't even know about family constellation, but the ancestor work, there's so many things that in my own life that I was experiencing, and had to look back into my life to see that I'm taking on things that were not mine. I didn't even know about that. And how when you remember and give it back, there's remembering them, and they're brought back into their place in the family system, something shifts. So the collective conscience always brings balance at the cost of the individual. Yeah. And then there is the third conscience, which is the spiritual conscience, which Bert Hellinger, the founder, always says it's the great love, the great overarching, interconnected intelligence, love that keeps this entire universe flowing, moving. Yeah. And that is the spiritual conscience. And it's the unlimited, overarching conscience. So where we are stuck in our life, or where we are situated in our life, also shifts the way we see things. Yeah. So when we are in the personal conscience, the view is very limited. It's based on my right and wrong, good and bad. And when we move to the collective conscience, and we suddenly start seeing a bigger view of the family system, and there are so many movements that are informing my own movement, and within that, finding my right place. And then is the spiritual conscience, in this entire universe, the scheme of things is beyond comprehension, and me apart. Ability to feel or situate myself as part of the conscience, spiritual conscience, and looking and moving in my world. So the levels of conscience and the orders of love together is the order. And then there are the facts of our own life that we can see, feel, that we remember, that's in our memory, that's very conscious. And then is the energy, the field itself. And what is the advantage? What have I found as the best thing? For me, family constellations is when I go to open a family constellation with my teacher or in a workshop. It is not at the level of my intellect. I do not need to do any processing and dissecting and the whys, none of that. It is so visibly seen. Complete strangers who have no idea about me, they are embodying in their phenomenology something so inconceivably that I know that I am able to witness and see, and I feel it in my own body. I feel the stuckness, I feel the entanglement, and I feel the relief of its release. Yeah. So all that happens, and there's a lightness. So without having to go here, there is a shedding that happens in the body, and there is such a powerful gift in that. So that is, I feel, and it takes sometimes many, many months even to see the effect. So when you open a constellation, it is always said that to sit with that, to allow the movement to make itself known, to come back to your body and see it and move with it. And, so that's family constellation. And it sits so well. So it was initially born, Bert Hellinger, the existential phenomenology, the Zulu indigenous wisdom, systems theory or family theory, all these together, and so many. So we look at trauma, early development trauma, intergenerational trauma, victim perpetuator work. So there's so much work that has gone in our training for us to inform, to see, and to do our own work of finding our own ease and finding our own place in our order. And it's a constant movement that I see myself moving through and learning to use the systemic lens to walk through this life. So give yourself the gift of living your purpose, following your own movements, stepping out of stuckness. Life flows, yeah, and flow, how to flow with our own life. With ease, with relief. And that's what family constellation is about. And I will be doing my first family constellation workshop in Vijayanagar on the 12th of January. It's a Sunday. It will be from, I think, 10 to 5, lunch is included. And you don't need to know anything about family constellation. We'll be doing a little experiential 90-minute segue in the very beginning. So you get situated into the phenomenology and the lens, the systemic lens. And then we will open 2 to 3 constellations. So, even if you don't wish to open the constellation, your own work, but you wish to be there to experience, you're more than welcome to join. We can only have up to 10 people. So it's going to be a very small, intimate group. So I hope you join us.